Hello, and you're very welcome to such as the JMac Podcast. I'm John, man. And of course, this podcast is brought to you by orgretch.com. And effectively, use promo code JMac Podcast to get 15% off on orgretch.com. Get the best gains, loads of equipment on attack today. Be attack minded. And tonight, I'm joined by former Wexford great Matty Ford, former Armagh and Crossbeglen great Paul Hertig, former Antrim absolute legend Kevin McGarty, and joining us tonight for the first time ever is GA Statsman, Mr. Matthew Hurley. So it's a pleasure to have the lads on tonight to talk about the weekend's All-Ireland semi-finals and the Total Cup finals. So lots to touch on tonight, boys. So we'll start off with Mr. Paul Herty. How are you keeping, my man?
Not bad, lad. Yourself? Good to get chatting to you again. You're keeping well after your unfortunate defeat the weekend.
Just about, my man. All good. I'll say no more. Matty, how are you keeping?
Good, John. Yeah, I'm delighted to get back on. I was mad to get on tonight after getting to be 3 from 3 predictions right for the weekend.
Boy,
so
yeah.
I want to come on and tell you why I got them right. So all good weekend of football and some good couple of good games, obviously. So yeah, all good.
How was the golf today, my man?
Oh, hot. It was hot stuff. The golf wasn't. The weather was. The golf wasn't so hot, but yeah, look, it beats working anyway. So yeah, any day you're on the golf course and not working is a good day as far as I'm concerned.
What are you playing off?
I'm back out to 7 now. I was down at 5 a couple of years ago, but that's what you get for playing cack-handed and not practicing. So look at it. I play it. Golf is to be enjoyed, not endured. So I don't take it too seriously, and it's good old crack.
Boy, Matty, happy days. Kevy, how are you keeping?
I'm great. Matty Ford telling lies there again. Absolute bandit playing off 7. No chance he's playing off 7.
I am, and not a bandit anymore. I'll fucking tell you. It's like a one-armed
Rubber bandit.
A one-armed one. That's all it is.
But yeah, I suppose we're all great to be alive on a Monday night after it's been a desperate week for the country. Cavan have lost, Dublin have lost, so looking forward to chatting about both of them.
You wanker. Mr. Hurley, how are you keeping?
All good, John. Other than the fact that Kerry got to the All-Ireland final, they're on the verge of an All-Ireland now. But sure, as a Cork fan, you know, you have to deal with it and up the tries win for the final, I suppose.
110%. So a bit of housekeeping before we get in. The nominees for the Player of the Week this week is obviously Mr. David Clifford, Damien Comer, and Ronan O'Toole. So them 3 lads are up for nomination. So you can cast your vote on the GA Instagram page. And the Team of the Week, lads, is Shane Ryan in between the sticks, Jack Glynn, Christy McCaig, Kevin Maguire, Kieran Malloy, John Daly, Tyke Murley, Garobah Kiernan, James McCarthy, Ronan O'Toole, Seán O'Shea, Kieran Kilkenny, Damien Comer, David Clifford and Paddy Clifford. So Big P, any thoughts on that Team of the Week?
Great team. I was just thinking about the David Clifford, the Clifford brothers, and what fantastic forwards, and imagine having Damien Comer on the other side of you. But as the season progresses and seasons have progressed, we're beginning to wonder how special Paddy Clifford is at this stage. You know, he has, he got the man of the match yesterday. He has been performing superbly and consistently for Kerry now this last couple of seasons. And I think there were seasons there he wasn't in the Kerry team, I don't know, and there was rumours going about he was the finest club footballer in Kerry for a long time. And now that he has broke on to the county set-up for the last couple of seasons, he's absolutely been fantastic. So while David grabs a lot of the headlines, a lot of football has been played by Paddy, and he's been fantastic and probably under the radar or under the shadow of David, but he's been absolutely superb, and I've been watching him closely enough, and he's a class footballer, really, really good, and he has to have a shoe in at this stage probably for Player of the Year.
He's flying. Matty, any thoughts on that Team of the Week?
Yeah, look, there's no more than any other probably Team of the Week. John, there's always a few maybe unlucky, as I thought maybe Conor McCluskey was worth a shout. I think he was excellent again the weekend, and all Kevin's been a big fan of his all year, and rightly so. He's kept some top class guys pretty quiet. Look at, I suppose, from the match yesterday, maybe Brian Fenton in with half a shout. I thought maybe 1 or 2 more the Westmeath lads could have made it, to be fair. But look at it. It's very subjective. I think we'd all pick completely different teams, I think, if we went about it. But you wouldn't have too many arguments with anyone that's in there anyway, for certain.
What about yourself, Kevin?
Can you read me the 6 backs again?
six backs was Jack Glynn, Christy McCaig, Kevin Maguire, Kieran Malloy, John Daly, Tyke Morley.
Okay, is there no such guy as Tom O'Sullivan? I mean, absolute embarrassment. I mean, Tom O'Sullivan again yesterday, powerful. Again, I agree with Matty on this. It's subjective.
But Johnny Murray picked that team of the week to GA.ie, so blame him.
Yeah, Johnny Murray must have been in Amsterdam or somewhere when he was picking that team of the week. If there's no Tom O'Sullivan, let me tell you. Again, it's subjective. We have to accept that everybody, the doctors differ, patients die, but no Tom O'Sullivan. End of story for me. Not much discussion after that.
You're like a bull, Mr. Hurley.
Look, Thomas Sullivan's a good show instead of Jack Glynn maybe, but Chris McCaig, I know Derry lost, but he marked Rob Finnerty in the game, and Finnerty got got no points in fairness to him, and he got 12 points for play before that. So that block alone deserves to be the team of the week, in my opinion. Tyke Morley. I think John Daly, I'm delighted he's the team of the week because he played excellent for Galway. The turnovers he won. And of course, David Clifford, Seán O'Shea, unbelievable forwards, definitely did. I probably agree with that team of the week, but as Kev rightly said, Thomas Sullivan, maybe for Jack Glynn, would be the only probably argument that you'd make.
Absolutely.
McCluskey to an extent too probably would be another one. I think would be quite hard done by. He's been very consistent all year. He's marked probably all teams' best sharpshooters all year, and I know Walsh was very good yesterday from place balls, or on Saturday from place balls, 3 frees, and I think he got 1 from play, did he? Or was it 45 or something? But he's been very consistent, and everyone he marked, he's done well. So I'd say definitely could have a shoe in for that team of the week, and definitely a man who will be up there for an all-star for coming back.
Absolutely, there we go. So that's the groundkeeping done. So we'll go on to Saturday's action, lads. In the Tottenham Cup final, it was Westmeath 2-14, Cavan 1-13, and obviously Westmeath can look to control throughout the game, and I suppose Cavan were clutching at straws for a lot of large parts. So, Matty, what's your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, look, we did. Myself and Kevin went for Westmeath the other night, and I do think by a bit of a distance, to be fair, they probably were the better team on the night. I don't know whether it was maybe the bit of a favourites tag maybe weighing heavy on Cavan. They never really settled into it properly. They never really looked a massive threat. They certainly didn't look a goal threat, and it's something we talk about later on. But they got a goal out of nothing basically. And these balls, these high balls into defences have caused absolute mayhem over the last number of weeks, but that's where Cavan's goal came from. But other than that, they weren't really a serious goal threat. Paddy Lynch probably had his best game in the Tailteann Cup, and Gerard McKiernan was quite good again. But I think barring that goal, Westmeath looked actually comfortable enough for the most part. We said it, and it probably has a similar relevance to the other two games. Forwards win games. You can have all the game plans you want, the setups you want, but you still need guys who kick the ball over the bar. And Westmeath just had more of them the other day. And there's actually some excellent, really top quality scorers from both teams. But I think Westmeath's ability just to have more of those players, like Ronan O'Toole really ran riot. But their ability to have more those type players, I think was ultimately the difference in the end, and they ran out quite comfortable in the end. Cavan, I'm sure you had went fairly quiet yourself over the weekend. I'm sure you had gone to ground a bit, but they only had 3 forwards scored. It's something we talk about here a good bit, but Paddy Lynch, McKiernan, and Gerard Smith was really, really good again and continued his excellent form that he showed all year. But other than that, Westmeath had that big spread of scores again. All the full 5 of their 6 forwards scored, and scored more than once as well. So I think I'm sure it's a disappointing end to the year for Cavan, but they were the 2 best teams in the Tailteann Cup, and I think, as it turned out, the best team in it probably won. And look, we all, I suppose, had serious reservations about this, but it has turned out, and I think you'd have to just say, look, it has turned out as a success. Look at the crowds going to the games. To be fair, the match as a spectacle was excellent on Saturday evening. It was a really good watch. And then look at the crowds in Mullingar on Saturday night were brilliant. Fair play to them. Like, you think they won the Leinster Championship. So I suppose, look, we have to maybe hold our hands up and say I certainly did anyway, say we got it wrong. But I think it's something that's going to be here to stay. I think there could be a few little tweaks, absolutely. But I think, on the overall, I think it has been a success, and I'm sure, Cavan didn't want to lose a final in Croke Park, and I'm sure Westmeath are absolutely over the moon that they won it. But I think, as said, by some distance, they were the better team. Ronan Wallace was excellent again at centre back. He scored, I think, was the last point of the game, absolutely up and down the field at literally 100 mile an hour for the whole match. And he has some engine on that fella. There's guys around there like they were able to bring on the likes of Kieran Martin and Jerry Egan, lads who have been around the block. And obviously, ultimately, Kieran Martin's goal is probably the decisive moment of the match. So you're delighted for guys like that. Heslin was very good again, and he was held relatively well, but he was smart enough, by freeing him up. By tying him up, they were able to free up players like O'Toole and Sam McCartan and Luke Loughlin again to do a good bit of damage. So I think, look, at the better team won on the day, and we said, myself and Kevin went with Westmeath last Monday as well.
Yeah, and I suppose, obviously, Matty, how far can this Westmeath team go? Because I think a lot of people seem to be sleeping on the fact that they are actually a quality team. They have a lot of good forwards. O'Toole was brilliant, Heslin was brilliant, Luke Loughlin inside. So, I know the Leinster Championship is an absolute embarrassment, but if Dublin kept coming back to the pack, Westmeath could seriously climb trees, Matty.
Well, we talked about Westmeath earlier on in the league because they were looking very likely to get out of Division 3, and I'm sure that's what they'll be looking at again next year. But they have been probably the second or third best team in Leinster consistently for the last 5 or 6 years. Kildare have kind of come and had a bit of a shot, and maybe one or two other teams, but they have been there. Look, they're after getting a couple of bad beatings off Dublin, but so has everyone else in Leinster and beyond. But I think they're, like we've said this about a few teams, I definitely think they're going in the right direction. They have a young age profile. I really like actually both managers, to be fair, the weekend. Jack Cooney, he just kind of speaks from the heart, and is very genuine and very straightforward, and he seems like a hell of a decent fella, and the lads look like they're really playing for him and really want to play for Westmeath. And with the likes of Heslin, Jerry Egan, or Kieran Martin was injured all year. The likes of them lads up front, they've that nice bit of experience. James Dolan has been around the block, and the likes of Wallace, the likes of Sam Duncan. You can keep going. Connell in the middle of the field. These lads have a bit of quality. So if they can make a step on to the next, I think. We've said this about the counties in the lower divisions. I think the real progress to be made through the divisions in the National League and get up to Division 2 and really get a foothold in there. And I think they can be a little bit more of a threat in Leinster over the next 2 or 3 years.
So is Cavan end of things as well, Matty. Obviously disappointment, and maybe some of the attacking prowess up front was seriously lacking. I know Paddy Lynch did try, but at times it can look very wayward, Matty. So just overall, as you probably rightly said a couple of seconds ago, it just wasn't a great performance.
No, it was probably they left their worst performance of the season to probably the biggest day of their season. But it didn't look like they had much of a plan up front. To be fair, a lot of the points were individually brilliant scorers and from distance and stuff like that. But there didn't seem to be a clear plan. Where we were talking off air there about the likes of Kerry and Dublin who really try and kick the ball in, and Westmeath tried to do that and tried to get runners off guys and get guys into space and to kick some really good scores and an awful lot of scores in play. But Cavan did look a little bit toothless in attack. Like one of Paddy Lynch's points out near the sideline was outrageous. Gerald McKieran obviously had a couple of really good scores as well, and a couple off his right that he's probably not renowned for. But it just kind of seemed a little bit more made up, maybe than Westmeath looked like they had a proper attacking plan. And I think that's the way it worked out in the end. And they created their goal chances. The first one, grand, absolutely a bit dubious, but I don't think anyone can have any doubts that they were the better team on the day, but probably is a bit of a disappointing end to the season for Cavan.
I suppose obviously Mickey Graham was saying to the Irish News after the game that he was going to consider his future, Matty. So what do you reckon with that? 1 more year, or do you think he'll go?
Look, it's hard to know. I think most managers will tell you at the end of the season they're considering the future and we're not making any rash decisions, blah, blah, blah. But I think he probably will hang on. It looks like those players are playing for him. There certainly doesn't look anything untoward from the outside anyway. And, I think he probably deserves another year. I would, maybe he's back from team, need to be freshened up a little bit, a new bit of coaching or something like that. But, he's obviously done an awful lot of good for Cavan with the Ulster Championship in 2020. So I don't think too many people in Cavan would begrudge him another go. I think if he was to come back for 23.
I agree with that, Matty. Kev, what about yourself?
Yeah, it was a strange game in many ways because I think I agree with 90% of what Matty said. Again, I articulated last week that I think the big problem with Cavan was that a lot of it was piggybacking on Groyd McKiernan. And if you actually look at the game, I think at one stage in the game, just before half-time, Groyd, or maybe from the 20th minute to the 25th minute, Groyd McKiernan kicks 3 points in a row. He's the leader. He's the one to the fore. We spoke about Lynch and his influence and having to be there. But realistically, we didn't get the performance, the rounded team performance we wanted from Cavan. I spoke last week as well about Thomas Galligan. It was quite an unfortunate red card in many ways. But, you take into context of vital minutes and games, and we'll come to speak about that at more length, about the Galway-Derry game and certainly about the Kerry-Dublin game. But for me, there was a couple of key moments in this game. The Lurkin-Dolan goal in the 31st minute, I think it was, just on the cusp of half-time. That was a key score because Cavan had just edged in front at that stage. And for them to go in at that stage, and get that score was massive. Obviously, then the sending off is a huge factor in the game. And then sort of Cavan get their noses in front through that, as Matty sort of said, that sort of freak goal, if you want to put it that way, that uncharacteristic at inter-county level. And we've no better man here to tell us about man, ball and all than Paul Hurdy. When it comes into the square, you just take everything in front of you and you get that insurance. And it was a poor lapse from Westmeath. But the thing that really impressed me about Westmeath was at that stage when they went behind, they had a man up, but they showed that character. And, when we talk about winning something, we talk about a team. And I think Matty mentioned it, but when we consider Ronan O'Toole's performance, when we consider Ciaran Martin coming off the bench and scoring that goal, when we consider Lurkin Dolan's performance, when we consider Sam McCartan's performance, Ray Connellan in the middle of the park and Patches was good. And that's even before we've come to talk about John Hesson. So for me, more of the bigger players stood up on the day for Westmeath. And I think, when you look back at them 3 vital minutes in the game, that goal just before half time, the sending off then in the 59th minute, and then the Ciaran Martin goal. And John, let me flip the Ciaran Martin goal away from Westmeath and back to Cavan. Because when you actually look at that goal, in terms of Cavan defence was all at sea. All at sea. He just ran straight down the middle, blast the ball to the back of the net. You've got to ask, where was the system there? Where was the sweeper in that particular instance? When we look back and analyse that. So, for me, Westmeath were deserving victors in the end. Bigger players stood up, and at the vital minutes in the match, they got the key scores or the key incidents went in their favour.
Yeah, bang on. It kind of makes you think what we were out for the 3 weeks, because I think defensively and going forward we were just so off it at times. It was scary kind of watching on. And I suppose, Kev, as I was saying to Matty, can Wexford build blocks from this? Because they have some absolutely outrageous forwards. And the thing I was really impressed watching the game live, every time they went up the field, they looked so dangerous.
I don't know about Wexford, but Westmeath can't. You just said Wexford.
Oh, that goes to show. Westmeath.
Leave John alone, Cavan, will you, please? He's not in the right mind stable. He's not stable here today. Head's gone.
Go on,
John. You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think they can. I think this sort of is their level. When we look at and we consider what Division 2 is next year, when we think about Kildare and Dublin are down there, we've seen Dublin. We'll come on to talk about that. We've seen the potential of games this year in Division 1 of Kildare. We've seen Derry throughout the summer. Clare got to a quarter final. Cork are in there and they can only improve. I think Meath are still in that division. And now, when you look at where Westmeath want to go to, is up into that division, and maybe get into the All-Ireland series. I don't know. I think this is just about their level, if I'm honest with you. And that is not trying to be condescending. I think this is their, this is their Everest, if you want to put it that way. And they've climbed it at the minute. Matty makes a really good point about their age profile, and a lot of their players, they're in that younger bracket. Maybe they need to build on that. Maybe they need to see a good minor under 20 or 21 team, whatever it is now, come through. But no, for me, this is their. Maybe if they get up this year, they get into Division 2, get better quality game. But for me at the minute, no, this is their pinnacle.
There you go. And Mickey Graham's future as well. Kevy's obviously talking Irish News after the game. What would be the thoughts on it?
Well, the thing you're thinking about as a Cavan man is, look, if a manager leaves a football club, let's say in professional sports or American football or whatever else, who are you going to get to replace him? Who's your next option? That's
my thing, yeah.
Who's going to be better? What we're looking. Of course, people are going to look for the job and whatever else because they want to get to that next level. But, he took Cavan in the Ulster final. Yes, did they get relegated? He's now got them back up. They've now been to the Tolson Cup final. Maybe one more year, as Matty says, maybe freshen a wee bit up. I know he freshened up last year, but maybe bring somebody else in to do a wee bit more coaching and then try and win the competition next year. But they're up a league back into Division 3. If he can push on into Division 2 next year, then bring Cavan football back to the place where maybe he found it.
What about yourself, Big P? Your thoughts on Tolka final?
Yeah, I think, we're talking about Cavan all year and talking them up. And, both teams have probably took to the competition the best and put everything into it. And obviously the two best teams in that competition in the final. And, it was Westmeath. As Westmeath went, we were particularly looking at it because, we're fairly fond of you, John, and wanted to see Cavan do well. And, we're gutted for you, like, I was gutted for you because I never heard a peep from you there for 3 days. I knew you were in bad mood form.
Why did I ask you? Why did it bother me? I was asking you.
Listen,
Big P, I phoned Smart. I phoned Smart to see if he was all right.
I went to the holidays after that. My game, I had to go in and play. I was in bad form. And me going to the holidays and everything. I was in that depths of depression too. We were all hyped up, ready for Galway, but Galway done a job on us. But it was just unfortunate. Cavan didn't hit the heights probably that they expected as the boys I heard earlier on, and Westmeath come up with the goods at the pivotal times in the game. The 2 goals were crazy finishes. You know what I mean? Like that side footer off the ground in the top bag. It was a great finishes. 5 points. 5 points from O'Toole, man of the match. He was absolutely fantastic. He was unmarkable, and probably, as Thomas Galligan, probably one of your more influential players, getting sent off was a big blow for Cavan going forward. But there was small things throughout the match which probably didn't help. Galligan, the other Galligan, Ronan, probably a couple of wee errors with kickouts. He was forced to go longer than he probably wanted on certain occasions, and they didn't get them away as well as normally. But that just goes to show how much work probably Westmeath put into putting pressure in that department as well. But the array of finishing from Westmeath when the chips were down, looking Loughlin 2 points, Heslin got 3, obviously 2 frees. What a player he's been for Westmeath, and probably getting to pick up a bit of silverware at his time in his career. He's been fantastic. But, unfortunately, Cavan on the day, just a wee bit subpar, and Westmeath just hit all the right notes at the right time and come up with scores at important moments. And that's what it takes to win finals in Grove Park. Unfortunately, some like Derry probably hit the bum note at the weekend as well. And unfortunately, Cavan are probably in the same boat and didn't get their players playing at the sufficient level. But as they say, Mickey Graham probably will take time. He's there a good few years now. He will probably take time to sit down. He probably has a young enough family and see where he can take the team. As you say, the players are playing for him. He has all the boys. I think after the Ulster victory a couple of years ago, that was the time to kick on. Didn't really kick on after that. And where do you go to now? As you say, he could be the man for another year. He might think it's time to step down, but he'll still look at the thing and think he has fierce loyalty from all the players, and maybe one more year at the helm would and see where he goes from there. But just unfortunate for Cavan wasn't there, and I felt bad for yourself, John, and I have a couple of friends, as I say, from Cavan too, which is disappointing for. So unfortunate for them, but Westmeath, come up with the goods and tipped us on the day. Sorry.
He looks it.
He looks.
I am. I'm genuine enough there.
Oh God, Mr. Hurley, your thoughts on the Taunton Cup final?
Look, first of all, the Taunton Cup was absolutely brilliant competition just to give the Division 4 and Division 3 teams an opportunity to play in Croke Park throughout the competition. It's been a brilliant asset to the G, and I was kind of sceptical at the start, and much like you lads here, I was kind of like, how are they ever going to improve if they play a second tier competition all the time? But these teams are now going to Croke Park, like Westmeath and Cavan, even Sligo going to the semi-finals. Like, wouldn't that ever happen again? Like, that's an absolute brilliance for the J, and hopefully it continues into the next few years. And as for the game itself, look, Westmeath deserved it, absolutely deserved it. Like, an interesting stat actually, the last two games they had 100% kick-out retention for both the semi-final and the final. Like if you have that retention, you're always going to win a trophy. Like, I was talking about my old podcast with yourself, John, about Westmeath midfielders in Lynham and Canellan. They're excellent at feeding the ball, and even their short kickouts, they're so smart in the way they do them. I suppose I was disappointed with Cavan the way they didn't push up on them earlier, but you have to give credit for Westmeath as well. And looking at the forwards as well, absolutely outstanding. Sam McCartan's a player that's really come into his own in this Taunton Cup, run O'Toole's excellent as well. And look at the last few years, probably Westmeath deserved their day out in the sun, because let's not forget last year against Mayo, they should have beaten them. Meath, they should have beaten them. And Cork and Páirc Uí Chaoimh, they should have beaten as well. So they should have beaten them sides at the top level. And looking at it from a broader perspective, they probably deserve to win the Taunton Cup. Of course, the changing point was the Thomas Galligan sending off. It probably was a sending off, in all honesty. And yeah, Cavan didn't score for them, I don't think. So that was a huge turning point in the game. And yes, it was poor defending for the second goal, particularly from Cavan's point of view. But that was a brilliant goal from Kieran Martin. And he's done it before in Croke Park. Let's not forget the Meath goal in the Leinster semi-final a few seasons back. What a player he is. Underrated, I think. And even you've your man Egan on the bench. Like, Westmeath always had a stronger bench, which is why I thought they'd win as well this Taunton Cup final. But yeah, Cavan had an absolutely brilliant year. And as regards Mickey Graham, look, a few years ago we were talking about Mickey Graham as one of the best coaches in Ireland, along with Colm Collins from Clare as well. Look, I think he deserves another year. But then again, like, if he has young kids, if he has family, if he wants to concentrate on them, I completely understand his decision. But if he wants to stay on, I think Cavan should let him stay on another year. He's been absolutely brilliant winning that Ulster title. And it's the least he deserves. And well done to Westmeath for winning this Taunton Cup. And judging by the last few seasons, their performances, they definitely deserve their day out in the sun in Croke Park.
Yeah, don't disagree with any of that, Matthew. And I suppose, obviously, Westmeath going forward, Matthew, were you impressed with, I suppose, their shooting efficiency? And obviously, you're Mr. Statsman, as you like to call yourself, so they were very impressive.
They were, yeah. But look at the stats, actually. They had Cavan and Westmeath had similar attacking stats. Westmeath had a shot retention of, I think, 59%. Cavan had a success rate of 58%. But it was just what Westmeath did in the final third that was better, I suppose. Like, they had more shots than Cavan, 27, Westmeath at 27, Cavan at 24. Their kickouts was much better. The turnovers, actually, Cavan won more of that. But I suppose the sending off at the end of the game made a huge difference. It turned the game completely. And another interesting stat, the scores from play throughout the whole final. Cavan scored 112 from play. Westmeath scored 211. That's only 4 points from frees or placed balls. That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible.
It was a good game, yeah.
It was an excellent game.
It was up and down in the first half, yeah.
It was definitely a brilliant game, and brilliant, to show that these counties can cut it in Croke Park as well, not just Dublin or Kerry. Yes, they're brilliant counties and all that, and Galway as well, and Cork when they were good as well, Derry, of course, as well. But when these counties get their day out in the sun, and even looking back throughout the Taunton Cup, like Keith Byrne from Leitrim, or Sligo in general, Offaly, like the amount of teams in this Taunton Cup that really expressed themselves, I think that's a pleasing aspect as well for this competition, and hopefully it's here to stay.
I suppose, open up the floor, lads. And Matty, as you said a couple of minutes ago, it has been a success, and obviously, the Westmeath 60 grand towards the team holiday. The bits and pieces that comes with that, lads. So it's a nice card at the end of the stick. Yeah,
look, I'd be the first to put my hands up and say, look, we ridiculed it here. I think out of the park at the start of it, because look at it, I was a little bit all up in the air as regards fixtures and regional and stuff like this. But I think it has. I don't think any of the players that played in it would say anything other than it's been a huge success. Look, it absolutely is a nice little carrot at the end of it. 60 grand into a players fund for whatever they want to do with their county board or whatever is not to be sneezed at. We often got a lot further than that in championships and got nothing out of it. So at least they're making it something worthwhile. And I said it really looked like it meant a lot to the Westmeath lads on Saturday and Saturday night, and fair play to them. So I said a few little tweaks, and I think it could be. I definitely agree with Matthew. I think it's going to be here to stay. And if teams and players keep buying into it the same as they have this year, on with it.
Absolutely. And, Paul, what would be your thoughts on the Tall Cup? It's here to stay.
Yeah, I feel it's worthwhile. Definitely competition to keep going ahead, going forward, because as I said there, I think although they're playing teams at the same level and they're not going to play teams in Division 2 and Division 1, but it keeps a team, it'll keep a team
motivated,
going forward. Playing games further into the year than they normally would, and that can bring them on closer to the next season. Coming into the league maybe in January and February when it starts up again. And then if you have a chance to play in Croke Park, albeit you're not going in your provincial or through the qualifier route, but if you have a chance to play in Croke Park and then getting a team holiday if you win it, 60G, you're heading to the States or you're heading to Asia or something like that. It's not just a weekend down picking strawberries and Maxwell with Matty and the boys. But it's a serious thing to get an all expenses paid holiday away, and that in turn will build more bonding for the team for the year going ahead as well. And I don't know what the rest is, and I was fortunate enough to play in Croke Park many occasions, but there's nowhere else like it to play football. And if that's been dangling you, albeit not a provincial final or an All-Ireland quarter-final, semi-final, but there's a cup at the end of it and a chance to play in Croke, there's no questions asked. I would be going for it. And what else are you doing? Because you're going back to your club to play, not to belittle the leagues, but to keep the thing going till July. It's now July, and then your club season kicks off. Take a week off and then go at the club again. So it's good for them. The third and fourth division teams to keep the season going. And as Matty says, a couple of tweaks, a bit more buy-in from the other teams in it, the way the rest of the teams did in the semi-finals and finals, and it'll become a good fixture in the calendar.
It's like anything else, just needs to keep growing if the right attitude is put towards it, Mr. McGarty.
Yeah, I think the lads have articulated, so I'm not going to say much on that, but I think the market needs to be a lot better.
Come on, a tea in Croke Park, we discussed this.
Yeah, but look, the market needs to be a lot better. Look, it's a start. Fair play to them. Look, I was more critical than Matty, so I have to hold my hand up and say, look, things have gone well for them this season, and let's get it right. But let's look at maybe how they can develop this now. You can't stand still. We need to look at maybe an all-star team for this, how we go forward with it, And Paul's articulated there rightly, no doubt he's been on holidays with Cross McGlean and as well with Armagh. When you do have a winning team, it builds momentum for the next season. But actually, I'm not too aware. Is there anything in this package as well for Cavan? In terms of, do they get anything out of it? In terms of but I mean this. There's two participants in this game. Maybe something for them as well. Haven't been there, so I'm not too aware of all the logistics around it. What I'm saying is, decent start. Let's look at how we can build on it from now, moving forward. But credit where it's due.
Cavan get to go to Wexford, the boys get to go to Asia.
60 grand would have been nice. 60 grand would have been nice.
Yeah. It's a nice pot, but surely there is something in it for the Cavan lads, for the runners up. You know what I mean? That they can, as you say, something towards the holiday fund or something like that there, because a long enough season they've went as far as All-Ireland semi-finals, and a wee trip away would be no harm.
Yeah, no, I mean, John, that's like, as somebody that played at the bottom of Division 4, and I mean the bottom of Division 4 when we first started out, like the only, probably, no disrespect, Waterford and London were the only two teams below Antrim when I first started out. And you were going out to training and you were thinking, what the hell is this all about on a wet Monday evening in October? So when you've got something to look forward to like that, or when you've got an incentive to play for, That's important to have at every level, you know. And also we've seen this weekend that I think the GA has introduced their first junior All Ireland to come and beat London as well.
What was your thoughts on that game?
I didn't see it, but apparently it was a cracker. But no, what I'm saying is we're moving towards a model very similar to the ladies' football, whatever else. Maybe we're moving towards a right model. That can be an issue for debate in coming years. But certainly there needs to be an issue where players who are putting in so much commitment, getting very little out of it, that they look forward to.
And Mr. Hurley?
Look, it's interesting that Kev actually mentioned the ladies' football there. I've been going on about the ladies' football in multiple podcasts for years now. And yes, like Westmeath, I'm not saying necessarily that Westmeath will go on and win the All-Ireland next year, what Meath did last year in the ladies' football. But at the same time, it will bring on counties so much now. And that Westmeath team, correct me if I'm wrong now, but I think that guarantees their spot in the Sabmaguire Cup next season.
It does, yeah.
So, look, that's going to be brilliant for their development. Look, and you look at Cavan as well. Like, I think both of them are probably going to be favourites for promotion to Division 2 next year from Division 3. Like, Offaly, I'd say, it'll be close enough as well. Maybe Antrim could do well if Andy McAtee, if the deal does go through, of course. Like, maybe they could pull up a good run. Like it's going to be very interesting now, Division 3 next year. And that's a major part out to the Tailteann Cup. It will bring counties on so much now. And when you look at the counties that took it seriously, like I think the only county that didn't really take it seriously was Down. Like other counties actually took it really seriously, and that was a main thing out of this campaign. And it will bring on other counties, other small counties, leaps and bounds now, and the players will get the recognition as well. Mentioning Keith Byrne from Leitrim, looks at Noel Murphy from Sligo, Gareth McKiernan from Cavan. A lot of these players wouldn't have got recognition before this when there was just the All-Ireland series. So, you know, I think it's absolutely brilliant to see that. And again, long may it continue. Yes, it needs a few tweaks, but look, doesn't everything need a few tweaks? Nothing is perfect at the end of the day.
Absolutely bang on. And you just remind me there, Andy McAtee has been announced as the new manager of the Antrim senior footballers as of today. So we've Antrim's greatest son in the corner, Mr. McCarty. What was the better than that news?
Go easy, Kevin.
I think there was a lot of boys phoning mental hospitals around Belfast to see if Andy had been checked in for a bit of help. No, I think it's ambitious. I'll say very little on it, John Boyer, that it's ambitious for Antrim to look outside, to go to somebody sort of further south than Ulster. Generally, they've always looked inside Ulster. They've thought outside the box, so congratulations to them on that. They've moved quickly to appoint someone, so fair play to them on that. The big issue is, I find it very weird that Andy McEntee gave an interview to BBC Social not so long ago, and it seemed that mentally he was in a bad place with the game after the experience he had in Meath, and all of a sudden he's jumping straight back into it. And I mean, don't worry, us Antrim people aren't as passionate. You know, he's not going to get somebody ringing him up from East Belfast to tell him about GAA. But I mean, you know, we're still very passionate about our game up here. So I don't, that would be my only concern. You know, as I say, I think 90% of it's good. It's just a wee bit weird, I think, that Andy's jumping in after, you know, giving such an open and honest interview, in fairness to him, about the abuse that he had suffered. And maybe you were thinking the guy's going to take maybe 1 or 2 years out. But he done well with Ballyboden, fair play to him. You know, he went in with me for a couple of years, it just didn't work out, and that's the way it is. And look, he's went for something new, and Antrim have went for something new. And, you know, as they say, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I would tend to disagree with Matthew on the fact that Division 3 next year is going to be a hell of a league. When you have Down in there, who are going to have new management, when you have Offaly in there, who are going to be sore from being relegated, have won the All-Ireland under-20s 2 years ago. When you've got Fermanagh in there, when you've got Westmeath in there, who've just won the Tailteann Cup, when you've got Cavan in there, I think Antrim's big priority next year might be just to stay up again, and I think that could be hard for them. So, look, fair play to him. He's a game bastard, that's all I'm going to say.
And Kevin, on a serious note, is this the man to lead the Antrim lads to the Anglo-Celt Cup next year?
The next time Antrim win the Anglo-Celt, they'll be flying day trips to the moon.
Elon Musk will be doing that by 2024.
No, but on a side note to that, John, just if we're looking at any county, I think I put it into the WhatsApp group, and maybe you can share it at the bottom of this when you publish it. I don't know, lads, if you've seen Derry's plan. Like, Derry are in All-Ireland semi-final this year. 6, 7, 8 years ago, you know, when Paul Hardy was playing top of the range stuff in Ulster football, Derry had been sort of down a wee bit, Paul. But they've got together, they got a plan. By God, their coaching development plan is brilliant. And that should be a symbol for every county where you go from the bottom to where they are now. And really, not only have they a good senior team, but still they're competing really well at minors and 20s. You know, that's something that counties like my own county and maybe Maddie's county can look at moving forward.
There we go, super stuff. So best wishes to Andy McAtee with the Antrim senior footballers. We wish them all the best, and we'll move on to the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship semi-final that took place in Croke Park on Saturday. It was Galway 2-8, Derry 1-6. Who would have thought this was coming, lads? We had high hopes for this Derry team, Rory Gallagher, and they just come up short. I think scoring 1-6 in a game of football won't get you over the line in many games. Look, Galway go through to the All-Ireland final. Finian Hanley hasn't been seen since Saturday. Matty Ford.
Yeah, just a hope Finian's all right. I'd say he'll probably surface in time for the final, but no, look at it was a tricky enough one to call, and for some reason I just fancy Galway again. Look at it, similar to the Westmeath game. I just thought they had a couple more guys capable of kicking, and we spoke about it on here about kicking from distance, and that's what they needed to do. But look at it, the game started off in very predictable fashion, and you know, there was a few incidents. I think Kevin mentioned one off air there about a foot block for Derry have a goal chance. But you know, if they have get a 5-6 point lead, I think possibly it is going to be a different game. But you know, once Galway got the grips with them, there was really only one team in it from there on. You know, Derry have one forward scored a point from play up to the 64th minute of their starting 6 forwards, and look, that's not going to get you over the line in any game. You know, when Plan A didn't work, they kept trying Plan A, and you know it was going nowhere. Like I think Galway deserve a huge amount of credit here, and you know, I'm not saying that from my own point of view as you know, they're slagging me here a good bit about being friendly with Pádraig, but I think they got an awful lot of stuff right in the space there of a couple of weeks. About, you know, getting guys behind the ball. They had a huge amount of turnovers. Were Derry a bit sloppy and weren't up to the same standard to play in Ulster and against Clare? Absolutely. They didn't bring the same level of intensity. But you know, when Galway finally got on top of them, you know, I think they limped out the game really poorly and fairly early in play. I think they held up the white flag because you know there was no coming back. You know, Benny Heron wasn't mapped. You know, probably even Doherty and Downey were very, very quiet. You know. And the big surprise, like you know, I think it was probably Conor Glass's poorest game this year by a considerable distance. I think that the Galway midfield won this hands down. So they did, and that was where a lot of their or their launch pad for winning the game. But just looking at it from my point of view, I felt that Malloy and McHugh, I think were excellent for Galway. You know, anytime you know, Derry attacked the drop back in one either side of the D, and they were getting there to cut out and, you know, make tackles. There was a huge amount of turnovers, but like, I suppose if you want a better phrase, Galway out Derry for big parts of this game by getting a lot of numbers around the ball carrier and really hitting them hard and turning them over. And you know, like I said, 1-6 and the goal and the point that came from the 64th minute on is just not going to cut it. But Galway have that bit more quality up front, and obviously Comer, we were discussing last week who might be the match winner, and we all had different opinions, and mine I think was probably Heaney, and I think Kev maybe mentioned Matthew Tierney and guys like this. But you know, Comer, when it came to it, you know, he was head and shoulders above everyone in that field, and probably, in my opinion, will be the footballer of the week. I thought he was, you know, he was the difference in the two teams. I think it was as simple as that. His first point, you know, was a barnstorming run and a really good kick, left foot kick off his weaker foot, you know, under severe pressure. And obviously the two goals are, you know, they're the big difference in the game. And you know, as it turned out, they probably needed a second one. There was going to be, you know, they haven't been brilliant at holding on to leads as we've seen against Armagh in the quarterfinals. So they needed that little bit of a cushion, but. You know, I think Derry will be very, very disappointed with the way they've went out of championship. You know, they brought such a massive crowd to it, and the colour, everything in Croke Park was top quality from their point of view, barn football. But I think Galway got an awful lot of stuff right here, and I'll tell you one thing: they're going to be a serious opposition for Kerry in 2 weeks' time.
Mr. Hurley, your thoughts and events that took place between Galway and Derry?
Yeah, it was an interesting game. Like in the first half, it kind of echoes the 2011 semi-final. I think they mentioned in commentary on RTE, Donegal and Dublin. That was 4 points to 2 at halftime, and amazingly, they said the 2-8 to 1-6. So it was basically the semi-final from 2011 without with the goals. You know, so I suppose it does kind of echo like Derry. I think it's their first year really at this stage. I think they probably will improve next year, but this was Galway's time. I said this on my own podcast last week as well. Look, Damien Comer, Shane Walsh didn't, to be fair, but he did hit some frees and did very well in the frees. In fairness to Comer, what a player he is, 2-2 from play. Even though I'm saying during the league, what a player he is. A bit underrated by the general public. I thought before this game, I thought he was brilliant in this year, not just this game. But I suppose with Derry, like I probably lead towards Galway before the game even started, probably because like I think Derry's quarterfinal performance was a bit overrated against Clare. Don't get me wrong, 5 goals and 13 points is not bad. But I thought that Clare team was very naive in Croke Park, and Derry got through them pretty easily. But fair play to Galway, what a win for them. And they're battle hard now after a win over Armagh and a win over Derry. They'll be going to the Kerry game now full of confidence in this game, and what a win for them. And I suppose Derry will go on to next year with some confidence that they can get promoted from Division 2. It was always going to be a stepping stone for Rory Gallagher. Look, I'd say he's disappointed, but the Derry fans would say, look, we didn't expect to get to another semi-final at the start of the year. Look, it's been a brilliant year, and they should enjoy their brilliant year, go out on a holiday or something like that. But it's Galway's time now. They'll go into another final very confident now that they can beat Kerry. They are underdogs, but sure, they've been underdogs now. I think for the Roscommon game in the Connacht final, the Mayo game, the Armagh game, the Derry game, they will relish this underdogs tag, and Galway will go into the Ireland final full of confidence to beat Kerry.
Mr. Paul Herty.
Yeah, disappointing, I suppose, is one word we can use for Derry. Apart from the first, I suppose, 20 minutes, which the hell goal was scoreless. After that, it just seemed to fizzle out, and like a damp squib, it didn't really ignite at all. The sort of swashbuckling football that they played, probably in, maybe not the Ulster final where it was a real cagey affair. I think the other games where they had a great blend. They sort of tried to mix the game up to a certain extent. We didn't see much of that. We didn't see any sort of longer balls going into full forward lane. Their passing wasn't as accurate. They're efficient. They weren't very efficient in what they were doing. Too many players off the boil. It was just very disappointing from Derry. And I suppose, as the last remaining Ulster team, we sort of wanted to chip in behind them and see just maybe they could do this, because they were very good. I know Clare, no disrespect to Clare, they weren't the highest quality of opposition they could have played in the quarterfinal, but they done what they had to do and disposed of them efficiently. But unfortunately, too many players again didn't play. Benny Heron very disappointed. Conor Glass very disappointing. McLaughlin very disappointing.
And all the talk about Benny Heron league into the game, you'd swear he's going to score a hat-trick, and yeah. That's
it. He was the goal getter all year. A couple of goals in the Ulster final, a couple of goals the last day. He was playing and he didn't get a sniff ready. But then, this goes down to the Galway lads, Porrick Joyce and Devanley and the boys in the back, and they done their homework. They got their matchups very well done. John Daly was very good. Kieran Malloy, great football. Liam Silk was excellent at the back. Conor Gleeson was, they didn't even test Conor Gleeson. I know he had a hairy day the last day against Armagh with the high balls coming in. And I seen Rory Gallagher saying, he answered a question that, why didn't you try a couple of high balls in? And he said he hadn't got the artillery, that wasn't their game. But I think when the chips are down, Conor Glass is a big man. Throw him in there. He can catch a ball as he real style or something. He can fetch. Throw him in there, see what will happen. I know there are people giving out about Oren Lynch coming out of goals and getting caught for that goal, but the game was over at that stage. Although Comer, this possession, Conor Glass did, and I think it was Tom Daly, was it Jack Daly or John Daly? Sorry, done it. A great ball for Comer to finish it off. But the game was over at that stage, so they had to try something. But you could have thrown some of the bigger men into the full forward line and try what Armagh did. Armagh got 2 goals out of it. They have to try something. You can't just be so one-dimensional all the time. The game wasn't there for Derry for a long time. And you need to change it. You need a plan B. Most teams have a plan B. If surely you can lump balls into David Clifford. Kerry are very versatile in that way, and they're very good with the foot passing, whereas Derry is just run, pass. And there's no real quick transition between defence and forward. And that was the disappointing thing, I think, as well.
Yeah, Paul, in fairness, Rory Gallagher was part of that 2011 Donegal team against Dublin. Was he trying to maybe reminisce a performance like that? Because large parts, it did seem like it was going that way.
Yeah, and then, that happened. And then in that Donegal game, Ryan McHugh had a field day and absolutely ran away with it. And they got their 2 goals on the counter-attack. They didn't get that from Galway because Galway they probably mirrored Derry to an extent with the way they set up at the back. And then when they did get the turnovers, and they got a lot of turnovers in there in the defence, as I said, the defence did very well. They were lethal in attack. Homer was having one of those days where just everything he touched 2-2 from play, and he was fantastic. Even after going down with a couple of injuries, and he had a couple of shin injuries or whatever he was, he still kept going. Some managers might say, Jesus, take him off, and we'll get someone else in there, but he stuck it out. He didn't down tools, and he got his just reward, and he was fantastic, and he's probably player of the week. But just Galway seemed to have more cutting edge up front, and it's probably Matty alluded to last week. They just had that better quality of forwards, and they curtailed the Derry attack very well, and they got their just reward on the blotted Derry out at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And on to go to an All-Ireland football final against Kerry now in 2 weeks' time. So on the go, and we'll move on to yesterday's action, lads, in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship semi-final, Croke Park. Kerry against Dublin. It was Kerry 1-14, Dublin 1-13. And lads, it's the game of the decades. It's the 2 teams we all want to see play. Seán O'Shea getting the last minute free to kick it over from 55 yards out. Stuff of dreams. Matthew Hurley, what a way to win an All-Ireland semi-final.
What a way indeed, yeah. I suppose I put out a controversial tweet saying that Seán O'Shea's kick was probably better than Stephen Cluxton's kick. And I'd argue because Seán O'Shea was against the hill, he was against the wind, he was beyond the 45-metre line, and he still kicked it over. What a score that was. And that pressure, like the Dublin fans of the hill would have been jeering him, and to do that, what a achievement for Seán O'Shea. And all throughout the game, I know Dublin had a spell where they were absolutely brilliant and they had a bit of momentum going, but overall I thought Kerry absolutely deserved it. Like in the first half, I think they only won wide. Like that was incredible for them. They had a 68% shot conversion rate overall. What brilliant statistics from that Kerry side. But it was the old guard for Dublin. James McCarthy dragging them back into the game. Kieran Kilkenny, what a goal from Conor Costello as well. And I didn't think Dublin would have it in them, especially after conceding that early goal from Seán O'Shea. But Kerry, they hung on in there. And I suppose this is the win that Kerry needed, because against Tyrone, against Cork, against Dublin in the last few years, when the nail was put to the collar, Kerry didn't have it. They had it now yesterday, and that was the difference between the teams. And Sean, you could see the ecstatic Kerry players at the end of it. Jack O'Connor, what an achievement for him as well. And he could win another All-Ireland. And David Clifford, some people were saying he was injured. He scored 6 points, 4 from play. I honestly don't think he was injured. I think it was all Kerry taught, to be honest with you. Look at Mark O'Shea's articles and all that. But they were saying he was injured. He still scored 6 points. And he does David Clifford things. What a scoring rate by him. But I suppose the worrying aspect for Kerry, they only relied really on the 2 Cliffords, Seán O'Shea, for scoring in this game. Thomas Sullivan only got 1 point as well as he played. And Dublin had a larger range of scores. That will have to be rectified for the All-Ireland final. But Kerry have a 2-week gap now. They have to prepare for it. But what a monkey they got off their back for this Kerry team. And it was the win they needed after the last few years, after the disasters against Tyrone, Cork and Dublin in the last 3 years.
Do you have any kind of stats from the game yesterday, Matthew? Do you have in front of you? I wouldn't mind hearing what maybe.
The kickouts were actually good for both sides. Dublin had 89% win rate, Kerry had 81%. The main was probably the kicking. Kerry had 68%. They had actually one wide in the first half. They had, I think, 3 wides in the second half after that. It was Dublin's wides really that killed them, especially in the first half, the first few minutes. I think it was Ciarán Kilkenny on the ball right in front of goal. You wouldn't expect him to miss from there, and he just missed, And they missed some easy chances, Dublin. They had 24 shots. Kerry actually had 22. So Dublin actually had more shots in this game. But it was just the shooting in front of goal. It wasn't as good as previous years. Like we seen in the All-Ireland final, I think, a few years back. Dublin only had, I think, 1 or 2 wides in that All-Ireland final replay in 2019. How far back they've gone in regards to that. And I suppose we were talking off air about the referee in this game. He actually gave more frees to Dublin in this game than to Kerry. Like Kerry actually had 4 yellow cards in this game, and not one of them, incredibly, was Seán O'Shea. Seán O'Shea actually he got away with no yellow cards. 4 other players got yellow cards, including Clifford in the first few minutes. So that was incredible as well. And from play, actually, it was a draw of 1-10 apiece. So it was an even game throughout. Dublin could have won it, but I thought the shooting really let Dublin down. And that you couldn't have said that a few years ago about this Dublin team. And again, Ciarán Kilkenny, Niall Scully towards the end as well, before Seán O'Shea hit that point. Look, Dublin will look back at that and have so much regrets over their shooting stats. But look, Kerry will have a lot to improve on going into the All-Ireland final, and it is the win they needed.
Great stuff, Matthew. Great stuff. Mr. Hardy, your thoughts on Dublin and Kerry yesterday?
What a game, I suppose, for the start, for a neutral. I know we all love to see a bit of Kerry and Dublin over the years. The fantastic rivalry. What a game. I think that the thing is, probably going forward or not overall season, I don't think that Dublin and Kerry are out in front, way ahead of everyone else, and the final is a foregone conclusion. I definitely think Galway are in with a wild shout. As I say, Dublin very uncharacteristic probably in previous years, but we have said on this show before that there's been a downward spiral in the Dublin team, and I suppose they weren't that far away from Kerry, who are meant to be the up and raising coming team. And I suppose, as we said probably off air, that Conor O'Callaghan missing the game yesterday was a huge loss for Dublin. And I think if Conor would be playing, we'd be sitting here talking about Dublin in an All-Ireland final. That's how much of an influence and how much of a fantastic, they're one of the best players of this generation, and he's not that old, but he's one of them types of players among his peers like Jack McCaffrey and Kilkenny and Cluxton and all them boys. He's well up there with them boys. But as we said, uncharacteristically missing a few chances that they would normally execute. We've seen Paddy Clifford probably from Kerry, probably eclipsing his brother. Well, I know 6 points and 4 from play is fantastic. Fantastic result for them. But Paddy Clifford, I think, as I said earlier, he's been really, really consistent, playing at a high level day in, day out. And he hasn't been overshadowed by his brother Devon, and I've been very, very impressed with him. And as you said yourself earlier, Kevy, Tom O'Sullivan, so good at the back. Seán O'Shea, fantastic, and has been, player of the year stuff all year through. Another 1-4 yesterday, whatever it was. He's been scoring, and when the chips are down, he is the man for them type of free kicks. And what can we say about that free kick, lads? It was just unbelievable. We all looked up onto the hill and we've seen 13,000 Dubs going nuts. And for a free outside the 45 was probably up in probably 50 meters,
55 yards out, Paul. Yeah,
you know what I mean. That's some kick when it's straight in front of the goals and there's no wind, but that wind was swirling down around there today, and it was absolutely superb. And as I put up on Twitter, lads, we've only an hour to go. We've nearly 5,000 votes in, and I put up between Rian's free and the final to equalise it for us and Sean's yes. So let me see. I'll just when I'm here now. Rian is 53%. And Seán is 45. It's fairly come back. Rian was ahead by 60%. So it's coming.
There's some man to start a movement, Big P.
55, yeah. We 4,885 votes. So so Rian's 53% ahead. So I'm sure probably more followers from Armagh than I do from Kerry. So I don't know what see how that goes. But as you say, it was a free kick on pars with Cluxton's for the All-Ireland final a couple of years ago. Albeit that was a final, this was to win the semi-final, so it was absolutely superb. But two great teams, a fantastic game of football. You know, you could probably watch that game over and over again. But as you say, I did just your stat you said earlier about, you know, the Dublin team had a far better spread of scorers compared with Kerry. Kerry's full forwards but that's coming from, you know, the Kerry team seem to get the ball in with the foot a lot quicker and get it to their danger men as quick as possible. And their ball retention is very good. When that ball goes in from the foot pass, they have the hands on. Their hands is very good. They can turn, they can twist, they have a wee trick, and they're managing. Their forwards can get their shots off quicker than maybe Dublin, who will maybe not take that maybe 60-40 chance or a 50-50 chance with where the shot is on, and they recycle it a wee bit more. And then you have your half backs obviously coming forward, corner backs, midfielders who are chipping in with the scores. And Dublin have them players who can chip in with the scores from all over the field. Whereas, as you said, the Kerrys of this world seem to get the ball up that wee bit quicker, where David Clifford's chipping in with 6 points, Paudie's chipping in with his points, Seán O'Shea is chipping in with a score, and the forwards seem to do all the damage. So that's the brand of football they play, and it's superb to watch, and we love to see that kick passing game. And it was very, you know, I think it was one of the boys said in the podcast, yes, or the group, yes, it was football porn. It was class to watch. But you know, by no means is Galway to this final. Kerry, as we said, maybe if Conor Callan had to be playing, if I had a good extra time, maybe would Kerry have the legs on the Dublin team. It could be questionable enough, but it was a good. It was a fine game of football, and it could be one you could be watched over and over again.
Definitely, Paul. And what about yourself, Matty?
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyable game of football, and like it looked, you know, Paul is saying there about when we spoke about it off air, Kerry looked to be flagging a little bit at the end, but conditions looked to be very, very warm there yesterday. And like the context of Seán O'Shea's free at the end is, you know, it's ridiculous. You know, I took a few frees myself in my day, but you know, he probably has 10-12, the guts of 10-12k on the clock. You know, it's 74 or 5 minutes. He's 55 metres out into the hill with a wind, and never mind the 13,000 dubs screaming, and there's 5 or 6 dubs straight in front of him. I'm sure weren't wishing him the best of luck either. So, like to get that, like to sum up the energy to kick a 35-metre free in that context at that stage of the game is amazing. What he done is, it's unbelievable. You know, I haven't voted on Paul's yet, but if I get a chance before the hour's up, I'd have to vote for Seán. I think it's just an amazing kick at the time. It was no less so than Rian's, but just the distance of it, and you know the conditions he had to put up with. But I think just about the better team won. I did find it strange when Small got the yellow card that Kerry didn't push up and really go for it. There were 3-4 points up at that stage, and I thought they really could have went for the jugular, because they done it back in Killarney, back in the league, obviously in completely different conditions and different circumstances in the league. I thought they really could have went after him at that stage, and I thought they really should have. But they didn't. They sat back and they were very patient. And you know, as they said about Ferguson, it was very, very much squeaky bum time coming down the stretch, and it looked at all the makings of extra time. It looked like, but you know, Matthew's stat of Kerry's that is almost 70% proficiency in front of goal, I think ends up being the difference between the two teams. You know, O'Callaghan missing, Paul is, I agree 100%. If he's there, we're talking about a Dublin win. He's that important, because you know, we did say it on here over the last number of weeks. Neither Rock or Costello or Paddy Small or Odell, who's in there, have been that focal point to the attack when Connor's been missing. They just haven't been able to score freely from play. Like, and you know, I think we said it off air, Dean Rock only has 5 points in play in the championship, in the entire championship. So, you know, Conor Callaghan was still one of the best forwards in the country, and his loss alone, you know, McCarthy just playing almost turned it for him. But Kerry seemed to be able to get their scores quite a bit easier, and in around the I wouldn't call it tap over, but you know, couple of Dublin scores were, I suppose, worldies, like James McCarthy. A couple of Kieran Kilkenny scores were outstanding, but the understanding that the two Cliffords and Seán O'Shea have is scary. You know, you've one guy coming off the other, little pop passes, and look, to just make it look so easy, left and right foot, I think, which is the the scary thing for a defender trying to mark any of them one-on-one, because like you're really wondering, is David Clifford left or right footed, and O'Shea the same. He's so comfortable on his left foot, which is obviously his weaker one, but they said they're getting a lot of their scores in around the D, which Dublin have kind of prided themselves on for a long time. But Dublin had a lot of wides, of course, and a lot of bad ones, but there was probably shots taken that wouldn't 2-3 years ago. The same shots wouldn't have been taken. It'd have been worked into a better position, and it ended up would have been a tap over. But I'd say they're waking up full of regrets this morning. But I'd say it's probably pure relief for Kerry. But I think Paul has said it as well. Seán O'Shea is in footballer of the year form at the moment. The goal is some finish, but I think if you look back again, it's one of the high ball in. It's very much if it's even 50-50 and it breaks and he picks it up and he turns back along the end line, he beats his own defender. But I think if you look at it again, I'm not sure whether I think it's Owen Merchant. Instead of going to him and cutting off the space, it's like it's this coaching thing of cover your own man, or I think I have to cover my own man. You have to cover the danger. Concede the point, get on with it. Grand, we've conceded the point. A goal in that game was huge, and it was huge. It was probably the difference between the two teams. But he actually goes to him, stops, and goes back to cover his own man, who thinks he's going to take a pass off Seán O'Shea, and O'Shea buries it, and it's a super finish. But it's one of the things where, like, at that stage, instinct has to kick in and say, stop a goal, especially that early in the game. Stop a goal, concede the point. That has to be. I'm sure the lads will agree. There's time in a match where you have to back off. We concede a point. We're being overloaded here. I can't concede a goal. Give the point away. Brand, look, we've got away with that. No big deal. But the goal is huge, and it gave great energy to carry over the next 5-10 minutes as well. But I found it strange. I looked at it and just showed it again and said, did he actually do that? And he did. Like, he stepped away from him and he'd actually opened the gap to him to run in on goal. Then look, I think having scored that penalty, I think it ends up being an awful lot more comfortable for them than it probably is. Great save, and fairness, brave enough to get up and look at. I think the whole hoo-ha about the ball was absolutely there to go for the second time. Has he followed through with his other foot and kicked him? 100%. But there's nothing else he can do. If his right foot is going forward, his left foot has to follow it. And there was a bit of a hoo-ha after it. I wouldn't, if I was the goalie in that position, or the forward in that position, would I have been going into? Absolutely, 100%. So I don't think there's not going to be too much made about that, and I don't think neither should there be. But I think Kerry will be a relieved bunch this morning. But it just showed how much momentum. Like Jack O'Connor winning as much as and he was going mad at the end of the game. So we said it here the other night. It was kind of shit or bust for Kerry, and I think it very much was. But as Paul says, I think this game is very much, this All Ireland final is very much 50-50. I'm sure we'll get on to that in a couple of weeks' time. But they'll be delighted to get through. And a lot of good performances again. Like Thomas Sullivan was super footballer again. The centre of the defence has been shorn up immeasurably over the last couple of years. I think Jason Foley and Morley were really, really good again. Gavin White played well again. His injury will be a bit of a concern, and hopefully he'll be okay. You'd love to see the two teams going out at full whack in a fortnight's time. But I think Kerry, while they didn't get many scores, I think Darren Mine was the only forward scored off the bench. They did seem to have that little bit more quality coming off the bench. They were a bit more of a threat to the Dublin backline. No disrespect to the Dublin subs, but after John Small and Davy Byrne, they didn't make much impact and they didn't make much inroads. And I just felt Kerry had a few more better options on the bench. But I found it actually was a bit of a strange game. There was no probably midfielder really dominated. It was very much, I suppose, 50-50. And it was an excellent game. The both went for it, but I suppose it's probably why myself and Kev are big Kerry fans. They really like to get the ball and kick it into space, and the amount of times they put the ball into the right space for the forward on the outside, hop into his chest, and that nice little bit of pace that it's not up in the air, it's not along the ground. Looks very simple, but it's not, and under pressure it's not that quite straightforward. But it's just great football to look at. But Dublin got their purple patch, and I said they could have won it, but I think other than that maybe 15-minute spell where they got 1-3 without reply, I think they weren't at their usual high standard, and this could be a bit of a turning point for Dublin, where you could see maybe one or two guys maybe stepping away. I'm not, they're well entitled to make their own decision, but it could be a kind of a seminal moment maybe for Dublin for the next few years.
James McCarthy might be in that category. Matty, great moment obviously between Jack O'Connor and Kieran Kilkenny after the game as well. Jack went out of his way to shake hands. I think that was a great moment from that game yesterday. Mr. McGurdy, your thoughts on Dublin Kerry?
Yeah, the lads have
I think, brilliantly articulated, in fairness. Just 1 or 2 points in terms of, for me, it's hard to say in terms of this being a Kerry fan. I actually thought Dublin lost the match yesterday rather than Kerry winning it. And when we think about that big quote from the lads earlier about Con O'Callaghan not being available, you know, when we look back at that game, small margins win matches, Kieran Kilkenny's misses, 2 or 3 of them, Brian Fenton, real leaders in this Dublin team over the last 5, 6, 7 years, missing shots. I think Matthew articulated beautifully when Niall Scully came on yesterday. He hit 2 rash shots. He wouldn't hit them last year, the year before under Jim Galvin. It just wouldn't have been accepted. You know, one of them was particularly weird shot, you know. So, you know, for me, as a Kerry fan going into the game yesterday, I thought Kerry would have had so much up front for them. And realistically, when I look at the performances of maybe Stephen O'Brien, of Paul Geaney, you know, even maybe David Moore to a lesser extent, who was playing in the middle of the park. Kerry didn't really play well yesterday, Matty. They didn't really play well. You know, we've got this freak of a footballer, you know, in Clifford. We've got another freak who's both brilliant from playing from dead balls and Seán O'Shea. And then you've got this beautiful creative player as Paul rightly articulated in Paudie Clifford, you know. And realistically, you know, I said about Cavan earlier on about Gerard McKiernan. They nearly carried them to victory yesterday, them 3 guys. Nearly, you know. And Dublin didn't really start the way that they want to start, you know. I'm always, if I'm managing a team, I'm looking at a big start because then you can dictate the pace of the game. And I think the lads had said, I'm not too sure if it was Paul or if it was Matty, had said earlier on about the goal. And when Kerry get that goal, all of a sudden Dublin are chasing the game. And Kerry are able to get back into that defence they've been working on all year, you know, and they've been doing quite well on. And that's what their game plan has been all year about defence. And they're obviously coming into the peak of their season and have articulated that defence very, very well. A couple of points about the match in terms of, yes, Matty, I agree with you. Nobody in the middle of the park was worth speaking about. Again, from a Dublin perspective, when you're looking at it from a Dublin fan, we spoke last week about Cormac Costello. I think Finian had said about him being the maverick that he is. He showed us the maverick in every way that he was yesterday, because regardless of the goal, which was orgasmic, his point shooting and his shot selection was diabolical. And part of the reason why Dublin lost yesterday was that. When we look at Dean Rock, absolutely, Dean Rock has been an incredible player for Dublin. His free taking, his accuracy to punish teams is incredible and all for there to see. Nobody can argue with that. But he's offered little or nothing from playing. He did that yesterday again. And Dublin kept him on for that length of time. For me, certainly, and I know that the squad has maybe been a bit depleted in terms of quality, but Jim Galvin in his term would have had Dean Rock off yesterday. That's my opinion on it anyway, because he wasn't adding anything from play. In terms of Kieran Kilkenny, again, the guy's a super footballer. His work rate's incredible. His industry's incredible. The way he goes about his business is, you just have to compliment him. But once or twice yesterday, you know, it's that thing where big players step up to the mark. And when we look on the flip side of that about the big players stepping up to the mark, Seán O'Shea and David Clifford did that at the big times yesterday. And I think that's the main difference. And when we talk about the game, when we talk about the game, people say it's a good game. Not for me a game for the ages, but a moment for the ages. Because I think Matthew said this, when you look at the Kerry reaction to that score, and you look at the article on Saturday, I think it was in the Irish Indo or Friday, from Darragh O'Shea, a fifth loss in a row would have been catastrophic for Kerry football. Catastrophic. Me and Matty discussed this. We didn't know where Kerry were going to go next if they lost this game. We don't know where they're going to go next. And you look at them players' faces themselves, they knew the pressure. They knew the monkey in the back. Now, 1 or 2 other points. Paul Hurdy's comment about that free. Cluxton, not even in the same league. Rian O'Neill to a degree, what a kick under pressure, but not in the same degree. This kick was the kick for the ages. And I think history will prove me right in saying that. Because this Kerry team now have entered a perch where they have possibly put themselves as favourites for an All-Ireland. And they're the sort of team that could do 5 of the next 6. They are that sort of team. But they needed that one big performance, that one big hour. And when you look at that, 55 yards out into Hill 16, when you know for the last 3 years that, I'm not trying to articulate this in any bad way, but these kids had won everything. Yet when they got to the big boy stage, they'd always lost against these boys. And up comes this fella and kicks one under every sort of pressure that you could give him. So, I mean, it was for me a kick for the ages. And only time will tell us that. But Kerry will be quite disappointed in a lot of their play yesterday, in my opinion. Gavin White, as was said there, obviously the injury is a big issue. He's an important player for them going forward, that springboard. And again, Tom O'Sullivan. But I would be, as a Kerry fan generally, I'd be quite disappointed in them yesterday. And again, their contribution from the bench, which I mentioned the week before, which I thought would be the winning point of this game, was really poor. Killian Spillane gave ball away. He hit a terrible shot underneath the Cusick stand into the hill that drops wide. Adrian Spillane gave the ball away once or twice. You know, for me, it was a nervous performance from Kerry. A nervous performance. And they got over the line. So, you know, they're there now. When we talk about, last thing I'll say about it is, let's not write Dublin's epitaph here in any way in terms of even some of their players. Dean Rock hasn't had a great season, that's fine. But he's a superb footballer. You know, maybe a bit of long break will do him a bit of good. Brian Fenton, incredible footballer. Look, it's the first time he's gone 2 years without an All-Ireland. He's been playing 7. You know, ridiculous to think. You know, Kilkenny. You know, these guys, they've a lot of miles on the clock, they've a lot of experience. And indeed, James McCarthy. And I hope James McCarthy, I played Sigerson football against him when he was a young boy. I hope he doesn't finish, because let me tell you, the energy levels that he brings are incredible. The passion that he brings, he can be a wee bit boisterous at times. But, you know, this is not the time to leave the stage, in my opinion. Nor Mick Fitzsimons, who battled yesterday. You know, the other thing I'd have to say is, David Clifford was getting quick ball in yesterday. I mean, as you're a full back or you're in the full back line, you know, you're a goalkeeper, as Paul will tell you, if you've no protection in there, it's quite hard for you to do. And, you know, Mick Fitz could have thrown in the towel at half time. He came out in the second half and battled hardly, you know. So these guys have given us so many moments of joy over the past 10 years, you know, and I don't think it's up to them to make the decision. But, you know, I still think there's a kick in Dublin yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. And any more thoughts on the games, lads? Are we happy enough?
I just think I would definitely agree with Kevin. Something I was thinking about during today, actually, that I'm sure we'll talk about coming up to the All Ireland, but Kerry actually haven't really opened up yet. You know, they played with some, you know, comfortable enough football again Cork, or some quality football, but they haven't really opened up and I'd say play with let the handbrake off to the full extent, where it hasn't been kind of swashbuckling. Has been kind of, you know, look, they're always going to win in Munster, and then, you know, it was a workmanlike enough performance against Mayo, and yesterday was obviously always going to be tough. But, you know, if they do open up, it could be quite spectacular. But I really do think Galway have the capability to do this too, because you have both sets of forwards here for this All Ireland who could really do damage with the right ball, and it's going to be intriguing. I think that's for another day. But I think yesterday was for Kerry was just about winning. It didn't have to be pretty, or whether it was a point or 4 points or whatever it was. It was just about winning, and I think you could see a much better performance in the All Ireland final now. That, you know, if they had won All Ireland, or potentially winning All Ireland without beating Dublin, I think they wouldn't get the same credit for it, and certainly not out of Dublin anyway. But they had to beat Dublin, I said, by whatever means. And, you know, I think maybe you could see them playing with a little bit more, I suppose, being a little bit more relaxed in the All Ireland final. If that's probably sounds a bit silly to be playing an All Ireland final relaxed, but, you know, they can go and play, and I think Galway will come and try and play football as well. I think that's their nature and has the makings of a great game. But Kevin obviously makes a lot of good points there as usual, and we probably shouldn't be writing off Dublin, but it doesn't seem to be the quality of player coming through that they have had over the last 10, 12 years. And like they obviously need the likes of Conor Callaghan badly, but I think just for me, a word on James McCarthy. He's played very, very little football this year, but Jesus Christ, his levels of fitness and his levels of performance week in, week out and year out have just been nothing short of amazing, and none more so than yesterday in a game like that. As I said, having played very, very little football all year, so we'd be quite happy, I think, to look at James McCarthy for another couple of seasons.
Mm-hmm. And the thing about Dublin is, when we consider them in and around, we've got to ask questions about I don't know the issues behind this. I'm just finding it out there. Someone I've seen play when I lived in Dublin for a while, Colin Basquel, for example, just coming into his prime. What a Gaelic footballer. Ryan Basquel. Where are these guys at the minute? Dublin have the quality to come back with a big kick and they add to the squad that they have, but they also need the senior players there. And I think that there's no doubting that these guys will come back. And for people, as I say, in the last 24 hours, people to write their epitaph is a wee bit, wrong. But for me, this Kerry team now has to seriously kick on. But their age profile, the manager they have, everything about them is just seriously good at the minute. The stars are aligned for them. So, the next big thing is they've let us down for a while. Let's see where they go from here.
Yeah, like if they don't win the final after winning yesterday, it'll be a big disappointment, I suppose, lads.
Certainly, we've been talking about the kingdom coming for numerous seasons now, and they got a fair kick in the teeth last year with Tyrone, and another kick in the teeth the year before with Cork. And this has been a few seasons we're waiting to see this team come to fruition, and it hasn't happened yet. But here we are. They've ticked all the boxes so far this year. They're gelling well, and as Maddie rightly said, they haven't actually clicked on a day yet. They haven't played that really, really good game that we've been looking at them, but they're improving all the time. Their trajectory is on an upward curve. So maybe when they play against Galway, maybe a more footballing team. Well, I suppose Dublin's quite the footballing team also, but I suppose rarely do you see an All-Ireland final that's a really, really good game. But maybe with the pressure and everything else that comes with it, and it's the first final since. Is it 2014 since Eamon Fitzmaurice is over them?
2019.
2019.
It'll be their first win.
First win.
Wins since 14, yeah.
So they haven't been there. They haven't been in too many big games so far. So they really need to be chipping in, as you say, with the profile of the team, to chip in with an All-Ireland now. And if they do that, you could be looking at a couple in a row or something, because of the way Dublin's going and the way Kerry's going. It just seems to be on a different plateau at the minute. And that game yesterday could have been, as you say, will stand to them going forward, and it could propel them onto further greatness. But they've a huge task ahead of them in Galway in 2 weeks' time, which is it's mouth-watering. Can't wait for that game, to be honest.
I just think there as well, John, that that the Dublin, the Kerry team of 2019 has changed immeasurably since then. To what we're seeing today. So the age profile of this team is quite young. You take out the likes of maybe David Moore and Stephen O'Brien and Paul Geaney, and this is a very, very young Kerry team who I think potentially probably had to maybe take a few beatings off Dublin, because after being losing to probably the greatest GA football team that we've ever seen or we ever likely to see. So I don't think there's any. There's too much what's the word I'm looking for, in disgrace in losing to a team like that. So I think they're coming with the right age profile, where you have a lot of guys like John Shawnee and David Clifford, and guys like this 23, 24, 25 years of age, Jack Barry, Diarmuid O'Connor. And then you look through their bench, is it's a little bit frightening. So I think maybe they're just coming to that age group. And I think if you look back at Dublin, I would say a lot of guys were around a similar age when they started. The first of their 6 in a row, and they're obviously still there. So maybe we mightn't see a 6 in a row, but I think we could see maybe potentially a period of dominance from Kerry, because they have all their ducks in a row. And I think that, as Paul rightly says, the trajectory of the two teams are probably moving maybe in opposite directions to a certain extent, and it'll be very interesting. But I, like the guys say, I think we're in for one. Hopefully we get good weather. We could be in for one hell of a football final.
Could I just ask Matthew, have you stats on Kerry's kickouts all season?
I don't think I do though, but I think out their stats for the Mayo game. I'm not entirely sure though, but against Cork it was pretty poor against Cork. I watched the game, it was poor enough. Limerick, it probably didn't matter. Mayo, it's fairness, I get reconciled over the Mayo game. I thought it was decent enough, but mostly their kickouts were short because Mayo had to push back a small bit. Their kickouts against Dublin was obviously high, but I honestly think it was because Kerry and Dublin both had to kick short. That was probably the reason why both of them were so high. But I think it's been high throughout the season. But I think it'll be the main challenge for Kerry if they kick long against Galway, into McDade and Conroy. That would be the acid test now for Kerry, because Galway, they dominated Derry's midfield. No doubt about that. They've been dominating midfields nearly all summer. And I think if Kerry can beat Galway in midfield, I think Kerry will win the game, personally. But it's going to be a big battle.
Yeah, no, the reason why I'm asking is just that I think this has been Kerry's Achilles heel for a while. Has been their defence, but also their kick-out strategy and not getting people in around the middle. But they seem to be able now at the minute. They've been working on that all year. Particularly yesterday, actually, I seen a tweet from someone, and I can't take credit for this, but fair play to them. He said about Brian O'Brigley when he picked up that last kick-out. It was a
player.
He picked up it under pressure and it's sort of an arm lock, like so. The ball went in. They've been obviously working on getting the free, but I think you said the percentage yesterday was somewhere over 80%, was it?
It was, yeah. And I looked at the Mayo one, it was 80% on the dot. So it's been 80% for quite a while for this Kerry team, whether they kick long or short. But I just think Galway is going to be a big test for them, midfield. Like, Galway have done very well in midfield so far. Mayo hasn't been the strongest midfield this season. Dublin have gone quite a bit back, so I think this will be a big test for Mayo. But look at stats for the Mayo Dublin games in Croke Park. They've been in around 80%. So that's an improvement for Kerry, but I just think Galway will be the big game to prove how Kerry have progressed.
There we go, lads. Yeah, happy days. Yeah, we'll be back next week to talk about that game. It's in 2 weeks' time. We've one more game to play in the football championship. It's hard to believe, lads, but there you go. It's only July and we're near the end. But anyway, lads, thanks a million for joining me this week. And of course, this podcast brought to you by orgarich.com and Attack TD. Use promo code JMac Podcast to get 15% off on orgarich.com and get the best skins, gloves, equipment on Attack TD. Be attack minded. Matthew Hurley from GA Statsman, Paul Herty, Matty Ford, Kevin McGarty, thanks a million.
Cheers, lads.
Thanks, lads.
All right, lads. Bye-bye.
Bye.